Hello, my name is Steve Cleves Jones, and this is the intersection of incarceration and education. Americans are reinforced to believe that individuals are largely in control of their own destinies. Hard work, sacrifice, and personal effort, we are told, determine what happens to us. But increasingly, the fundamental institutions of American society function unfairly, restricting access and opportunity for millions of people. The greatest example of this is that the present-day criminal justice system, which is failing us. So first, let me give you some facts. As of 2008, 1 out of 100 adults live behind bars. In the past 30 years, there has been a 500% increase in Americans behind bars, amounting in 2.2 million people, which represents 25% of the world's population. This prison population is disproportionately black and brown. As of 2006, the United States prison population was 46% white, 41% African American, and 19% Latino. In practical terms, 1/6 of African American males had experienced jail or imprisonment based on current trends in 2008, and over 1 out of 3 black men will experience imprisonment in their lifetime. And the overrepresentation of blacks in prisons is largely due to the discrimination in every phase in criminal justice system. A similar pattern is found within the juvenile justice system. According to the same study, African American youth amount in 15% of American juveniles. However, they represent 26% of all juveniles who are arrested by the police nationwide. They are 58% of all the youth who are sentenced to serve time at a state prison. In California, Latino are 2.5 more times likely than whites to be sentenced to prison. For African Americans in California, it is 6 times the incarceration rate. Nationally, African American students comprise 17% of the student population, but account 36% of school suspensions and 31% of expulsions. In New Jersey, for instance, black students are nearly 60 times more likely to be expelled than their white counterparts. And in Iowa, black students make up just 5% of the percentage of the statewide public school enrollments, but account for 22% of the suspensions. Too many black children are taught at an early age that their only future resides in prison or jail time. But despite this reality, the raw numbers and percentages of African Americans in higher education has largely trended upward. The bottom line in higher education, the overall numbers of African Americans are continuing to increase, yet the patterns of racial inequality and unfairness, from tenure decisions to difficulties black graduate students have in finding employment as teaching assistants, continue to exist. I also wanted to take a second and touch on Michelle Alexander's The New Jim Crow, Mass Incarceration in an Age of Color Blindness. Racism is why we in the United States continue to create new ways to punish the inner city black poor for just being who they are. That is, people who are systematically marginalized by how racialized thinking influence public policy responses to social and economic change. She so wanted to believe that we were not beyond the old racism of the past, and maybe we are, but it turns out that does not mean that we are now beyond racism. Instead, it It means we have moved to a new racism, a more implicit racism, one that more steadily relies on racial coded imagery to infiltrate our thinking and public policies. She reluctantly came to realize that even in post-civil rights America, most of us refuse to see the role of racism continues to play in structuring the allocations of life chances in our society, especially the role of race in the treatment of the substantial portion of poor black men who end up with criminal justice records makes them essential, unemployable, and often strips them of basic political rights, including the right to vote.